Hey everybody, and welcome to the intersection of sports marketing. I'm Brian Cristiano, and this is episode number 36 of OUTOFSCOPE, what brands need to know about sports sponsorships and how it might be different for the Hispanic market.
Sports marketing expert Brian Cristiano.
Brian Cristiano.
Marketers and advertisers and brands always have to keep in mind, you have to play to the state of your audience.
Sports fans are arguably the most passionate people probably on the face of this planet. If you're not passionate, do something else. All right, so we got a little bit different episode here of OUTOFSCOPE on number 36. We had a little bit of a hiatus. I was up in Vermont bike racing, 4-day stage race, GMSR. A couple of my teammates did really well. Got on the podium, two of my teammates did. Chris Young got third place on the second day in the category 2 field. A couple of my other guys, second and fourth. I did all right. I got totally destroyed in the mountain day, but it was awesome. It was a good experience, and yeah, a lot of things happening. So I'm back in town. We've got some really good stuff going on, and I'm out here actually on 42nd Street all the way by 10th Avenue because I just left Yotel, where I took part in the conference for Portada, a Hispanic multicultural marketing forum that's been going on. I think this is its 8th or 9th year. Really fantastic. Some super awesome, very smart marketing people, some brilliant brand folks there. And the panel that I was moderating and a part of was, we had NBC/Telemundo, the director of sports for there, the director of sponsorships, Patty Falch for Heineken, who is now sponsoring MLS for the next 5 years. And it was just like a really fantastic panel. We got in some really deep stuff. And what I wanted to do was kind of take a couple things that really came up there that were awesome, some good information, and kind of digest that a little bit. I'm not going to give away everything because you should have been there at the forum, but couple of interesting facts, right? Like a lot of everything we talked about hinged around, sports marketing in general, but then how it differed, or if it differed for the Hispanic market, right? You've got massive growth going on now with MLS. For example, and I'm going to pull actual statistics out of my pocket because I don't want to get these wrong. But from spring of 2008 to 2014, MLS increased their attendance from 1.8 million to 3.25 million, which is an 82% increase. And that's according to ESPN. So just a massive, super growth for MLS here in the US. And a big part of that is the multicultural audience, the Hispanic audience, right? It's super popular in that demographic. You've now got Heineken, who's the premier beer sponsor for MLS for the next 5 years. So sponsors, brands are taking note of this growth in that market, and they're not the only ones. There's a bunch of other brands, and NBC and Telemundo had some really good insight as well. Another cool fact here to kind of just draw the picture of how sports marketing has been growing. Since 2000, from 2010 to 2015, sports sponsorships in the US went from 11.6 billion to 15 billion. So a 30% increase in spend on sports sponsorships here in the US in the last 5 years, which is just major. It really kind of shows that there's growth in that market. Brands are seeing it. They're putting themselves there. Sponsorship is important. And, I talk a lot about digital marketing and video and content and all of these things, but at the end of the day, something that we don't really talk about too often are, event sponsorships, sports sponsorships. Are they important? Are they valuable? How do you measure that? It's much more difficult than, let's say, a social media campaign or even, traditional or TV marketing, because you can't measure it you can't quantify it as exactly. The KPIs are very different. But as digital is getting more noisy, as social is actually getting more noisy, as it's getting spread out on multiple platforms all over the place, as traditional is very clearly becoming less and less efficient from a media standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, sponsorships are becoming more efficient and more effective because people are there. They're interacting with the brand. They're interacting with the team. And sports people, as I talk about all the time, are some of the most passionate people on the entire planet. And if we're going to talk specifically about a group of people, then the Hispanic market, the multicultural market, they're as or even more passionate about sports talking about them specifically. And so there's an interesting couple of things that got brought up in this conference, which was, number one, how do brands just in general across the board really make sure they're positioning themselves in a sports sponsorship so that it makes sense? And this kept coming up over and over and over again, which is you have to have bus. We're in New York City, it's loud. You have to have context, meaning you can't put a brand with a team or with a sport where it just doesn't make sense. You have to have that context, right? People need to understand, they need to feel like there's a reason that this brand is involved with this team or this sport. The other thing is there has to be some sort of initiative behind the sports sponsorship that may not necessarily be at the event. It might be, mobile apps, it might be social media, it might be regular, traditional media promoting the fact that they are a sponsor. But you can't just put your logo up at a stadium or at a team or at an event and expect there to be any sort of reaction from these super passionate fans. You have to engage them before, you have to engage them during, and you have to engage them after. And the other big piece is it has to be relevant. Again, Heineken, for example, it's a beer company. Sports fans, especially in MLB, and they did the research behind this, are super passionate behind that brand. So it makes sense to connect that. You're drinking beer, you're watching a game, you're having a good time. It makes total sense. But it's a harder leap for like a bank or something like that to make that connection and make it relevant. And so then I think that all of that is super relevant when we're talking about sports marketing, even just in general, but specifically for events. You have to keep those things in mind. Again, it's not putting your logo there, it's about keeping in mind all of those pieces. Now, if we're going to talk specifically about the Hispanic or multicultural market when it comes to sponsoring sporting events, there's been a lot of talk of, you have to treat it differently than you would treat your regular marketing because it's a different market, it's a different segment. There's literal language barriers, but then there's also non-literal language barriers, right? It's there's a cultural difference there. And what was really interesting and what we got to the bottom is that when you boil it down, it's not about changing your marketing tone, it's not about changing your marketing approach to try to reach or talk to the Hispanic or multicultural market differently. What you have to focus in on is being completely relevant for the sport, because sport is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, if you're white, if you're black, if you're from another country, it doesn't matter. If you love a sport, if you love a team, you just love it. That passion is super deep with anyone, regardless. You can actually remove the ethnicity, loud again, and the commonality is the passion that all of these people, they're all sports fans. That's what brings everyone together from all different ethnicities, so it doesn't really matter. You don't have to treat them differently. You don't have to treat these other market segments differently, but what you have to do is you have to make it that you're a part of their team. You need to be a part of their team, they need to feel it, and they need to feel that you being a part of the team, and you being the brand, makes sense. Because otherwise, they're gonna feel like you're just pushing your brand into their really hyper passionate zone, their space, and it doesn't feel right to them. But if they feel like, yeah, this brand is doing some awesome stuff for our sport, it's giving us something back, they're doing things at the game and giving things away, or giving us access to players, or creating a really great social media strategy that's not just about them, but it's about involving the players, it's about involving the fans, that's where they'll start to feel that actual connection to you because of the sport. So I think that cutting through all of it really was the biggest thing that I got out of it, and that everyone that I talked to there afterwards got out of it, was to stop thinking of it about like these silos of, this is how we're going to approach sports sponsorships in the US, but we have to also think about the Hispanic market. No, this is how you approach sports sponsorships in the US, and this is how you connect with the sports fans, period. And that was really something I think was super powerful, because everyone wants to segment each audience. And there's a lot of power to being able to do that for certain reasons. But as a whole, as connecting as a sports brand or a brand connecting with sports fans, you have to be on their level. You have to be a fan, you have to give value, extra value. You have to give them something they're not going to get directly from the team. And that's what seems to be leading to the most successful marketing campaigns to like the likes of Heineken, what they're doing, as well as other brands and other sponsors that are doing it well. It's about giving that added value to the sports fan that they can't just get on their own. And that's what really creates this community and makes people and sports fans super passionate and super aware of the brand. And that, at the end of the day, is how you reach all segments of sports fans, not just the Hispanic, not just anyone else. That's how you do it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching episode 36. I really appreciate it. Coming to you live on 42nd Street. Not really live. But anyway, thank you so much. Please make sure to share, like, comment. I've been getting a lot of emails. Thanks for paying attention. Keep doing it. Keep sending them in, and we'll keep making some fun shows. Get some more information. I got some more cool people coming up on the show, too, so keep a lookout for that. Thank you. This is episode 35. It's not. It's episode 36.